Hi there, I hope you all are doing great. Well, today we are gonna solve this reading passage together, and I'm gonna teach you two things. Number one, how you can solve every single passage individually. What are the tips, tricks, techniques, and what is the exact way to solve every single reading module. So number one part of this video would be about learning that how to deal with every single reading passage. Just like here on the screen, you can see there is the reading passage one, why we need to protect the polar bears. And after that, if we just scroll it down, you can find the reading passage two after the question number 13. Now you can see reading passage two is here, where they have given the questions before they would have given the passage. Now you can see here comes the reading passage two. And afterwards, how to solve this reading passage two, what are the techniques to solve this? And then there comes the after 27 questions approximately. Let me see. Yeah, 26 questions. You can see there is the reading passage 3. So we have to solve these 3 passages by applying different techniques on these. We are going to cover this thing. That's the first part of this video. The second part would cover the categories of the question. Now you can see if we jump back to the passage 1, now you can see about the polar bear. Now you can see there is why we need to protect polar bear. That's the reading passage 1. And after that, there are some questions. For instance, question 1 to 7 is true, false, and not given. What is the best technique and what is the way how you can solve the true, false, and not given questions? That's what I'm going to teach you. So the first part would be how to solve every single passage. So techniques are different. The way you can solve your reading passage 1, you cannot apply the same strategy on the reading passage 2 or the 3. Same as the way you can solve the true, false, not given question, you cannot solve your fill in the blanks like that. So sentence completion is the second category, which is here. I will teach you how to solve this specific category of the question and how to solve every single category. Now, if we take a start with the first one and we can see the true, false, and not given questions are here, there are a few things that you need to understand related to this category of the question. There could be two possibilities. Either you can get yes, no, or not given question, or true, false, and not given question. These true, false, and not given questions are actually related to the factual statements. They will give you some factual statements, some facts, and you have to just answer that fact is true. Is it false or is it not given? This information could be true, could be false, but not given in the passage. Not given is something that you need to understand, that if information is not given in the passage, maybe you find information as correct. You have the knowledge about the topic already, and you know the statement which is written here is absolutely perfect. It has nothing to do with this answer. The answer would only be from the passage given. This is the reading test. In the reading test, they want to assess your reading ability. In the reading ability, they want to see that when you read out a passage, do you really understand it? And that is why the question is given. If information which is being asked in the question is not given, or even the meaning which is given in the paragraph is a bit different than what is being asked in the question, the answer would be not given. But for the yes, no, and not given are related to the opinion. These are not the factual statement. They will give you some opinions and you can say yes, no, not given. That's the difference. But one very important thing, as you can see, there are the instruction and they have given true, false, and not given if statement agrees with the information, if statement contradicts the information, and if there is no information on this. So you have to answer by mentioning true, false, and not given. One tip is when you will be writing down answer, you don't need to write complete word like true, false, or not given with the complete spelling. You can only write T representing true, F that represents false, NG which represents not given. So it's not mandatory that you should write down the complete word there. But the thing which is really important is to know the question type. It's true, false, not given. This is not yes, no, and not given, because in true, false, not given, you can only answer by mentioning true, false, or not given. But it can't be yes, no, or not given. The common mistake that students make is in the true, false, not given, considering that true, false, not given and yes, no, not given are the same question, it's the same category of the question. So instead of writing true, they mistakenly write yes there, which becomes a problem and they lose their mark over there. That is one thing that you do not need to do. and what skills they are expecting from you when it comes to true, false, and not given question. In these questions, they are expecting, they want to know that are you really able to identify the information? Just as you can see, there are 7 factual statements are given here. Can you identify information, this type of the information which is given here on the screen from the passage given above? Are you really able to identify those statements into the passage given here? What is the technique to solve that? They want to see that. They want to assess you on the basis of your ability of matching these statements by identifying information from the paragraph. That's what they want to see. Now, what is the problem that you face when it comes to solving these questions? The first problem is with the not given question. Not given question, not given statements, and the false statements are always a bit contradictory. Let me tell you the difference between false and not given. This is not related to this one, but this would really help you to understand it. If they give you a wrong information, of course, that would be false. And if they just change the context of the statement, of the factual statement, that would go towards the not given statement. For instance, if they say the first car was invented in 1971, let's suppose they say the first car was invented in 1971. Now, this is the information which is given in the paragraph. And the question says first car was invented in 1980. Now, what they did, they just changed the information, the related information, they changed that. Of course, that's the false statement because the paragraph says 1971 and the statement says 1981, the paragraph. So the answer would be false. But if they say the first car was invented in 1971 and the question says the first computer was invented in 1971. Now, the thing is, you might know that first computer was actually invented in 1971 and that should be a true statement, but that can't be true. Now, it can't be false as well because the information over there in the paragraph is related to cars and the questions contains information related to computer. This is the information which is not given in the paragraph. Now, the point that you need to remember, if they change the main context of the statement, of the information, that would be not given. But if they keep the same information, but they change the related information to the main subject, that would be the false statement. That's the easiest way to remember. If they change the subject, that's not given. If the subject remains the same and related information, or you can say the supporting information is changed now in the factual statement, that would be false. But the most confusing thing here is about finding out the answer is false or not given. And when it comes to the not given thing, sometimes you are not even able to find out any relatable information in the paragraph. That's where students waste a lot of time over there. And when they waste a lot of time here to find out the not given statement, the difficult or the problem they occur is that they have very less remaining time to solve the other questions, and that's how they make other questions difficult as well. And one more thing, remember, in the not given statement, just as I give you the statement, which is in the paragraph, it was written the first car was invented, and the question says the first computer was invented. Remember, this is very easy to understand. My example is really easy to understand. But when you are solving the real-time problem, a real-time question in the reading passage, this thing would be totally different. Sometimes it happens, words are similar, but those words are creating a different meaning. If words are creating different meanings, remember, you are not here to match the words. You are solving this category of the question to match the meaning. Meaning should match, not the words. Matching words, finding the same word in the paragraph, can't say that the statement is true or false or not given, but the meaning which these statements are creating, are these true, relatable to the reading? Are these false or not given? This is key information. Now, let me give you some tips that how you can solve this true, false, and not given question. My first tip would be always understand the question. Now you can see there are 7 statements only, and the paragraph given above is only related to these 7 statements. You just have to look for the answers of those 7 statements. It means reading out this whole paragraph and understanding it as a whole would be the waste of time, because the purpose is only that you should be able to understand the question number 1. What's the statement here? Identify, analyze the statement, understand the meaning of the question number 1, same as question number 2, question number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then look for the similar information in the paragraph. Now, skimming and scanning would work. Skimming and scanning only works to locate the similar information in the paragraph, but not to answer the question. Remember, what I'm saying, it has 2 parts. Number 1, you do the skimming and scanning to identify the similar information in the paragraph, that for the question number 1, this type of the information is given in the paragraph 1 or paragraph 2, but it has nothing to do when it comes to answering the question, because once you locate the information, you will locate the information with skimming and scanning. After that, you have to understand the statement. Once you understand the statement, once you understand the specific part of the paragraph, only then you would be able to find out the exact answer for the question. Now, when it comes to answering question, remember one easy thing that you should always remember, just as I was saying, the second part would be to give you the tips and tricks to solve the true, false, not given, and all other categories of the question. For the true, false, and not given, remember, all answers always come in order. An answer come in order means, if you will find the answer for the question number 1 in the paragraph number 1, there is no probability, and let's suppose the question number 2 is there in the paragraph number 2, so there is no probability that the question number 3 answer could be, for the question number 3, the answer could be hidden in the paragraph number 1, because the answer for question number 2 was there in the paragraph number 2. Answer for question number 3 could be in paragraph 3, 4, 5, 2, but not in the first one. So it means you just simply have to move on when it comes to solving the true, false, and not given question. I will teach you that when it comes to the other categories of the question, in which category do we find out that the answers are not in the sequence? Answers do not come in the sequence. And one last thing related to the tips from solving this true, false, and not given question is that, remember, when you understand the question and then you go to the paragraph, find out the exact similar information over there, you locate the information, and then you're trying to understand the meaning. Thing that you need to remember is always focus on the qualifying words. Qualifying words, what are those? Qualifying words are the always, never, often, sometime. These are the words which are changing the meaning, or even however, contradictory word, these are changing the meaning. Be very much conscious about those when you are gonna answer for true, false, and not given. Maybe you find the answer is false, but just because they use the contradictory word, they use a qualifying word there, the answer could go to not given. Now let's solve the reading passage 1. Let's solve it together. And the first thing, just as I said, it's important for this category, the question, that you should read out the question and you should understand, analyze, identify the information given in the question first. Then we'll move on to the passage. Now let's take a start with this one. Now in the question number 1 to 7, you can see, do the following statements agree with the information given in the reading passage 1? In the boxes question 1 to 7 on your answer sheet, write true, false, and not given if the statement agrees with the information, if the statement contradicts the information, if there is no information on this. Question number 1. Polar bears suffered from various health problems. Now, when you are solving this category of the question, understand you have to underline the keywords. The keywords could be suffer from various health problems due to buildup of fat under their skin. Fat under their skin. Health problems, fat under their skin. This is the question. We have to find out a similar information in the paragraph. Number 2, the study done by Liu and his colleagues compared different group of polar bears. Now, study done by Liu, this is the easiest thing. If they give you the name, just like Liu is here, once you will go to the paragraph, just as if we just go to the paragraph, now you can see the why we need to protect the polar bear. The second paragraph starts with a 2014 study by Shi Peng Liu. It's the same. Of course, they cannot use the synonyms of the names. They cannot use the synonyms of the dates. If the second paragraph contains the answer for the second question, of course, the first paragraph contains the answer for the first question because the second paragraph relates the information with the word Liu. And his colleagues compare different groups of the polar bear. Compare different groups. Compared is an important word. Different groups of, and the study done by Liu and his colleagues. These are the keywords. Liu and colleagues, once again, this information would also be there in the second paragraph because the second paragraph was about the study. We can also see that the similar information from the Liu is given in the paragraph 3, 4, 5 or not. But anyways, moving on, Liu and colleagues were the first researcher. First researcher is a very important word to compare polar bear and brown bears genetically. Now, brown bears and polar bears, these are the keywords. First researchers, keyword. Liu and colleague was also there in the question number 2. Number 4, polar bears are able to control their levels of bad cholesterol by genetic means. Now, bad cholesterol, control their levels, polar bear, genetic means, these are the keywords. If we find even one of these keywords there in the paragraph, we can locate the information. Now, female polar bear, even the female itself is a keyword. Female polar bears are able to survive for about 6 months without food. 6 months without food, survive. Female polar bear. This is the keyword. These are the keywords. It was found that the bones of female polar bears were very weak. Now, bones, very weak, female polar bear, that they come out of their dens in spring. Came out of dens in spring, keywords. The polar bear's mechanism for increasing bone density could also be used by people one day. Now, polar bear's mechanism increasing bone density used by people one day. These are the keywords. Now let's start looking for the answer from the question number 1. And just because of the your own understanding, just like we were able to find out the question number 2, information is there in the paragraph number 2. So we have to locate for the information for the question number 1 in the paragraph number 1. Just because the answers always come in order. Now, polar bears suffer from various health problems. We have to look for the health problem due to buildup of fat under their skin. This is the information. We have to find it out that is this really true, false, or not. Now, we can read out the paragraph number 1. Increasing threatened, okay, not disappearance could have reached consequences. No, adapted to extreme conditions of, okay, not related. Temperature reached 40, not related. One reason for this, they have up to 11 centimeter of fat underneath their skin. Okay, they have a lot of fat. Humans with comparative level of adipose tissues would be considered obese and would likely to suffer from diabetes and heart disease. Yet the polar bear experienced no such consequence. Okay. Now they are saying the polar bear experiences no such consequences, but human being, they suffer from diabetes and other diseases or heart disease. It means the question is related to the polar bear. Now you can see the polar bears suffer from various health problems due to the buildup of fat under their skin. Now, if you can see the information in the paragraph number 1, they have given in the 4th line, in fact, the 3rd line in the middle, one reason of this is that they have up to 11 centimeters of fat underneath their skin. Important information, they have the fat. But do they have the health problems or not? Human with comparative level of adipose, what's the meaning of this adipose? Don't take it like a problem. This word is not even related to the answer. Somehow we can understand adipose tissue. Must be the name of some sort of tissues, but you can go to Google, find out the meaning, build up your vocabulary. Adipose tissues would be considered obese and would likely to suffer from diabetes and heart disease. It means if human would have same level of fat under their skin, they would have suffered from diabetes or heart diseases. Yet the polar bear experienced no such consequences, which means it is so easy to answer the question number 1. Polar bears suffer from various health problems due to the build of fat under their skin. Totally false. Because they do not, human beings do suffer that. That's the answer. For the question number 1, answer is false. All right, let's move on to the question number 2. The study done by Liu and his colleagues compared different groups of polar bears. Did they compare different groups of polar bear? This is the question. Okay, now let's look for the same information. And his colleague compared the different groups. And if we look the similar information in the second paragraph, just because the first paragraph contains the answer for the question number 1, there is no point of looking for the answer of question number 2 in the same paragraph number 1. A 24 study, Shi Ping Liu and colleagues shed lights on this mystery. They compared the genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relative from a warmer climate, the brown bears. They compared the genetic structure of polar bear. Okay. And what is the question? The question says the study done by Liu and his colleagues compared different groups of polar bear. They are comparing the genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relative from a warmer climate, the brown bear. This allowed them to determine the genes that have allowed polar bear to survive in one of the toughest environment on the earth. No, they are not comparing the different groups. They are just actually comparing the closest relative, which is representing the same polar bear. They're not representing different groups of polar bear, and they are talking about the brown bear. So this statement would also go the false, because it's not about comparing groups, it's more about comparing the genetic structure of polar bears, and not the same polar bear groups, but in fact it's about their closest relative, which is the brown bears. It's not about studying the groups of the polar bears, it's about comparing them with another bear group, not the polar bear. That's why this statement would be false. Moving on to the question number 3. Now they are saying in the question number 3, the Liu and colleagues were the first researcher to compare polar bear and brown bears genetically. Okay, the first researcher, that's important, because now you can see to compare polar bears and brown bears genetically. This is given there. They are comparing polar bear and the brown bears. They are not comparing the different groups of the polar bear. In fact, they are comparing polar bears with the brown bears. But are they the first researcher? Let's look for this type of information in the paragraph number 2. As you can see that we have given answer of the question number 2 from the first 2 lines. Let's move on. This allowed them to determine the genes on the have polar bear to survive one of the toughest environment on earth. Liu and his colleagues found the polar bear had gene known as APOB, which reduces level of low density lipoproteins, a form of bad cholesterol in humans. Mutation. Polar bears may therefore be important study model to understand. They did not mention anything about the first researcher. They just mentioned a 2014 study by Shi Peng Liu and colleagues shed light on the mystery. They did not mention about the first researcher. Now, this is really important to understand. Liu and colleagues, this information is there. They were working on the study. If we just simply ignore the first researcher, and then we study further, we read out the statement further, compare polar bear and brown bear genetically. Yes, that's what they did. But the thing that they did not do over there, they did not mention there, was the first researchers. For me, the answer should be not given, because the first researcher part is not mentioned in the paragraph. The answer for question number 3 would be not given, because first researcher is not mentioned there in the paragraph. It is mentioned that they studied. It is mentioned a study which is from 2014. Maybe it's the first study, maybe it's the second, maybe it's the last one, but we do not know about that. And maybe we know it because of our own knowledge, but this information is not given in the paragraph. That's why we can't say that this information is true, false, or not, or true or false, because this information is actually not given in the paragraph. All right, moving on toward the question number 4. Polar bears are able to control their levels of bad cholesterol by genetic mean. They are able to control their levels of bad cholesterol by genetic mean. I believe this would be true, because in the first paragraph we read it that they do not suffer from similar type of diseases which human being would be suffering if they had this level of cholesterol or fat. But anyways, we simply do not need to rely on the information that we know. We have to find out the answer from the paragraph. Let's move on toward the paragraph side. And just as we know, the question number 1 answer was in paragraph number 1, question number 2 and 3 was there in the paragraph number 2. Let's figure it out. Where can we find the answer for the question number 3? And now 4. Question number 4. I can see once again the fourth last line is the bad cholesterol. The exact word, the exact keyword is used in the second paragraph. It means question number 2, 3, and 4. These 3 answers are given in the paragraph number 2 only because the bad cholesterol is there. Now let's read it out if this information is exactly similar to the information which was with the fact which was given in the question or not. All right, now let's read out this specific thought. Which reduces levels of low density lipoproteins, a form of bad cholesterol. In humans, mutation of these genes are associated with increased risk of heart disease. Polar bear may therefore be an important study model to understand heart disease in human. Okay, this is not showing that they are suffering because of that. Let's read out the question once again. The question says, the question number 4, the polar bears are able to control their levels of bad cholesterol by genetic mean. Are they able to control their bad cholesterol or not? Let's read it out, the information. And if they're saying polar bear may therefore be an important study model to understand heart disease in human, it means yes, they are able to handle it. And if we also get the context from the paragraph number 1, they were saying that they have 11 centimeter fat underneath their skin. But this, if the similar type of fat would be there in the human body, they would have suffered from heart diseases and so many other. So it means this, I mean, the information they are saying, polar bears may therefore be an important model to understand the heart diseases in human. And then they are also saying, and this allowed them to determine the genes that have allowed polar bear to survive is in one of the toughest environment on earth. A polar bear had a gene known as APOB, which reduces level of low density lipoprotein. So the answer should be true. But anyways, let's move on to the paragraph number 3. If they have given any sort of word like bad cholesterol or similar information, the genome of the polar bear may also provide the solution to another condition on the particular effect of the older generation. Osteoporosis. This is the disease where bones show. No. They are not talking about the bones. They are talking about bad cholesterol. So the answer is there from the paragraph number 2. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 5. Female polar bears. We did not read the word female at all. Now we are going to read it out somewhere, might be. Female polar bears are able to survive for about 6 months without food. So female polar bear survive for about 6 months without food. These are the keywords we'll be looking in the paragraph number 3 if these words are there. Now, I can see the second last thing of the third paragraph says is about 6 months of fasting, but can we see the other words, females? Yes. The fourth last line of the third paragraph, once autumn comes around, these females will dig maternity dens in the snow and will remain there throughout the winter, both before and after the birth of their cubs. This process results in about 6 months of fasting. Oh yes, they are. When they are about to give birth, there is a 6 months of fasting, which represents they can survive for 6 months even without the food because it's fasting. That is very informative. All right, where the females bears have to keep themselves and their cubs alive, depleting their own calcium and calories reserve. Despite this, their bones remain strong and dense. So this information, this process results in about 6 months of fasting. Now, of course, giving birth related to the females only. And to answer the question number 5, female polar bear are able to survive for about 6 months without food. Fasting means they are not taking food. See, they have not used the similar word, survive without food. They are saying they have a 6 months fasting, which is given the same information. So the question number 5 would be the true statement. Now, moving on to the question number 6. It was found that the bones of female polar bears were very weak when they come out of their dens in spring. Okay, let's read out the information. I believe they were saying something related to that. Despite this, their bones remain strong and dense. Okay, their bones remain strong. It's also there. But the only thing I'm concerned about, did they mention the word spring in the paragraph number 3? If you see, the question number 6 contains information. Like it was found that the bones of female polar bear were very weak when they come out of their dens in spring. Now, if they are not talking about spring, the information could be not given. The one word can create this big impact on the answer. All the information is given there, but not the word spring. Let's find out the word spring. because I did not read this word in the paragraph number 3, not even in the paragraph 2 or 1. Okay, let me go through this. Let me just scan the information from the paragraph. You can also do this with me if you find out the word spring in the paragraph number 3. The genome of the polar bear may also provide the solution. Okay, spring word or any word related to that is not given. Once autumn come around, they are talking about autumn, not the spring. These female will dig maternity dens in the snow and will remain there for 6 months. The winter, throughout the winter, winter is there, autumn is there, not the spring. Maybe the information go towards not given. But both, okay, the process 6 months after fasting, where the female bear have to, okay, depleting their own calcium. All right, bones remain strong and dense. Let's move on toward the paragraph number 4. Psychologist Alenda Lennox and whatever are the name, Alan Gottschalk found the paradox, and they discovered that the pregnant bears were able to increase the density. However, brown bears do not have the capacity and must therefore resort to major bone reformation in the following spring. Oh. Now spring is here. Hibernating brown bears do not have the capacity and must therefore resort to major bone reformation in the following spring. If the mechanism of bone remodeling in polar bear can be understood, many okay. This is important. In addition, the 6 months later, when they finally emerged from den with their cubs, there was no evidence of significant loss of the bone density. Hibernating brown bears do not have this capacity and must therefore resort to major bone reformation in the following spring. Okay. Now, this is not the case with the brown bears, but the spring word is there. But for the polar bear, okay, let's read out the statement once again. It was found that the bones of the female polar bear were very weak when they come out of their dens in spring. Now, it's false because the bones are not very weak even when they come out of their dens in spring. But that's not the scenario with the brown bear. That's not the scenario with them, because they have to reform their bones, but not the polar bear. This information is false because they do not have the weak bones there. Moving on to the question number 7, the polar bear's mechanism for increasing bone density. This was also given in the last line of the paragraph number 4. The polar bear's mechanism for increasing bone density could also be used by people one day. Okay, I mean, the system they have for the increasing bone mechanism could also be used by human or people one day. Let's read out the last line. If the mechanism of bone remodeling in polar bear can be understood, many bedridden humans and even astronauts could potentially benefit. Yes. If the mechanism of bone remodeling in polar bear can be understood, many bedridden humans and even astronauts could potentially benefit. Yes, they could. If we understand the mechanism of bone remodeling from the polar bear, bedridden human being, and even astronauts could potentially benefit. I believe this statement is true. The polar bear's mechanism for increasing bone density could also be used by people one day. Yes, we can use that if we just simply understand the mechanism of the polar bear's bone remodeling. Okay, so here comes the answer for the question number 7. The answer is true. That is how we have done only 2 things. Number 1, we identified the question and look for the information that we have to find out from the paragraph. Second step, what we did was we went to the paragraph, we tried to locate the similar information, and then we understood only that given part. Just as when I was making videos to help you guys understand that how to solve the reading passage, I was saying again and again that you do not need to understand the whole paragraph. We do not understand the whole paragraph, the whole passage, but we answered the question by understanding the given key information. Now let's move on toward the question number 8 to 13, and you can see the questions are related to the sentence completion.